By the time the Japanese attacked, tensions had been building up for months and the Philippines was expected to be hit. 5th Interceptor Command Chief of Staff Colonel Harold George assembled the officers of the 5 pursuit squadrons under him, 3rd, 20th, 34th, 17th, and 21st, telling them that war was near and Japanese invasion fleets were already seen in the South China Sea. This was 2 days before the start of war. He told them to deposit their wealth in their squadron safes and concluded by saying,
"You're not necessarily a suicide squadron, but you are goddamn near it."
That being said, on Sunday, December 7th, the men of the yet planeless 27th Bombardment Group were playing at the Manila Polo Club. They were not on alert as the other units were, and at the Manila Hotel that evening, their officers threw a dinner party for General Louis H. Brereton, who had commanded them back at Savannah Air Base. A lot of them were already drunk when he arrived. To the pilots, it was the best entertainment this side of Minsky's. At first, Brereton seemed to be keeping his eyes on the floor from disciplining the lot. But the 51-year-old fief commander was not known as a party pooper. While playing with a pilot, he cut his tie, and the young pilot cut Brereton's tie in return. That same evening, at the Tainan Naval Air Base in Formosa, Masaaki Shimakawa and other Zero pilots of Tainan Kokotai were ordered to report to the commander's office immediately. Captain Masahisa Saito told them,
"Early tomorrow morning at 6:30, our air group will attack the enemy air force at Clark Field. It is the day we have all been waiting for. I ask you all to fight courageously with the skills you have developed during your intensive training to destroy the enemy's air force. I am also thinking that not you all 36 pilots who are in this room will be gathered here tomorrow night. Therefore, I ask you to look each other in the face now."
They were served a special meal of red-colored rice, sekihan, and a small amount of sake. Shimakawa busied himself checking his personal belongings to be given to his family, writing his will. The 19-year-old farm boy who had never seen the ocean before now had 490 hours of flying time. He climbed to his hammock after 2200. In nearby Takeo Air Base, Lieutenant Tamotsu Yokoyama of 3rd Kokotai would not fall asleep after telling his pilots to sleep early. Lieutenant Takeo Kurosawa was also too anxious to sleep, fully expecting 2/3 of his Kokotai's pilots to die the next day. The Japanese had 252 planes scheduled for the attack, 54 Army bombers, 108 Navy bombers, and 90 fighters. 11th Air Fleet estimated that the fief would send up 110 fighters in Luzon, 3/4 of which would be the relatively old type P-35s, and the rest P-40s, which they thought were very good fighters. Per location, they estimated about 30 P-35s at Clark, 30 at Nichols, 25 at Iba, and 25 P-40s at Del Carmen. Being slightly outnumbered by outdated fighters may be okay, but the majority of the American fighters were actually the newer P-40s. They had 24 P-40Bs at Clark, 43 P-40Es at Nichols, 24 P-40Es, and 4 P-35As at Iba. Only one pursuit squadron, the 34th, was solely equipped with 22 P-35As at Del Carmen. The Japanese thought 30 to 35 B-17s were at Clark and 7 to 10 B-17s and B-18s were at Nichols Field. They thought the B-17D a very good bomber because of its maneuverability and attack capability. On paper, the Japanese were up against a truly formidable foe. Yokoyama's 54 Zeros were to take off immediately after the 81 bombers of Takao and Kanoya Kokotais. An hour after 1st Kokotai's lowered Type 96 Nell bombers were to take off at 0130. After Kanoya and half of Takao's Betis bombed Nichols, Yokoyama's pilots would strafe it and other targets in Manila after clearing the sky of interceptors. At Clark that evening, 30th Bomb Squadron Commander Major David Gibbs arrived after a recon mission over Formosa, seeing landing fields stacked with bombers. 19 Bombardment Group personnel knew these planes were going to attack them despite what MacArthur was saying, according to the grapevine, that they were for Thailand. Back at the Manila Hotel, Brereton's partying was cut short around 23:30 when he got a telephone call from the air warning service saying EVA's radar picked up unidentified planes to the north. Quickly, he headed out from the party to his headquarters at Nielsen Field and instructed Colonel Brady to notify all airfields and commanders to go on combat alert at first light. At Iba, Lieutenant Charlton Weimer was communicating with headquarters at Nielsen Field. Their SCR-270P radar van, however, could not determine either the number of aircraft detected or their altitude. Around midnight, Thorne took 6 P-40Es into the sky to intercept the bogies. There's 12 other pilots crowding in the operations van watching them on the radar. Conditions were poor. There were rain squalls around Iba and visibility was poor. As they headed southward, climbing to 9,000 feet, Lieutenant Jerry Keenan started having trouble receiving decoded messages from Eva, then couldn't communicate with him at all. This meant that while on the radar they seemed to meet 4 miles west of Corregidor, they did not actually get in contact because of the poor visibility. By 30 minutes after midnight, the Japanese recon planes had turned back and were 25 nautical miles off Corregidor. Meanwhile, Thorne's flight landed back at Iba. Disappointed, they debriefed and went to get some sleep. At Clark Field, Joe Moore's 36 pilots were made ready for a night interception, but as nothing had happened up to 2 a.m., half of the pilots were allowed to go back to sleep while the other half remained on alert. At Takao, Anxiety Rock 11 Kokukantai and its component 23rd Kokusentai HQs. They had still not heard from the recon planes and had picked up American radio conversations in Luzon. He had put Clark and Iba fields on alert and had taken off 6 American fighters from Iba to intercept unidentified planes. If those planes made hostile contact with the recon planes, the Hawaii attack operation, which was scheduled to hit at 0230 Philippine time, would lose the element of surprise. Just as the news of the failed interception relieved them, they received a report that the Tainan base was covered by thick fog. The Takao base was soon engulfed in fog as well. Their attack would have to be delayed 2.5 hours. Because of the near interception of their recon planes, Admiral Sukahara called a meeting of his 11 Kokukantai staff to change targets from Nichols Field to Iba Field. After hitting Iba, 3rd Kokotai Zeros were to proceed to Clark to finish off Tainan Kokotai's attack, which would be freed up to engage fighters at Del Carmen. At Tainan, Masaaki Shimakawa was so anxious he could only eat half his own breakfast of sekihan. He waited in his Zero for the fog to dissipate. He could not even see its wings. Then the loudspeaker system ordered the Tainan Kokotai pilots to report to the operations area, where Hideki Shingo gave them their final briefing. Shingo reminded them that they were to have only 10 minutes of combat. After the attack, they were to assemble in the vicinity of Mount Pinatubo at 4,000 meters for the homeward journey, and to crash land at Apari if they needed to ditch. After the briefing, some of the Tainan Ku pilots climbed into their cockpits while others sat under the wings, waiting for the fog to lift.